Views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live, Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
Well, everyone, welcome to the Carolina Cabinet. I'm your host, Peter Pappas, in the studio with the lovely Laura Mussler. Hello. And joining us, special guests, Mr. Andy Nilsson and Mr. Don Brown. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good to be here. Thank you, Peter.
Always a pleasure to have you all in the studio. So we got a lot to talk about. You guys are former U.S. Senate candidates. Roy Cooper this week went on national television and said Michael Whatley was handed his nomination. But I've got you two here, and you should know better that that's not true. You guys ran against it. And you guys competed for the nomination. Today you're in favor of doing something I think Washington should learn from, and that's putting the team ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
So we want to welcome you here.
Today, I get the fun jobs. Don Brown, I've been working with, I've been wanting to ask you about your campaign. So tell me, you campaigned for months. You went around the state from front to back, top to bottom, and everything. How many counties did you hit of the 100 counties?
Probably about 9 some. You know,
Every single one.
There were a couple.
Totally surprised.
Yeah, but we hit most of them, not all of them. We lost track after a while, but we know everybody all over the state. So.
Right. And you built a coalition, which is excellent. And not only did you build a coalition of voters, but you also built a coalition with Andy who ran against you in the beginning.
Well, I've come to not just like Andy, but love him as a brother. This whole I'm getting Andy in the room. The joint tour that we're doing was Andy's idea. I called Whatley today after the primary and said, Mike, I'll help you. And I came and said, great, we're going to need your votes. He said, we need to pull everybody together. You let me know. And not long after that, Andy called and said, let's do this together. It makes so much sense because we were friendly competitors, all on the same team and working for the same thing. And so I joined appearance. I'll give credit to my friend Andy over here. And the more I've gotten to know him, the more I've liked him. And so I'm going to miss him when he leaves. But we
Where's he going?
Well, he goes from here to there.
I go a lot.
Anyway.
So what did you learn about the North Carolina voters that you're taking with you?
Well, I learned that we had a coalition of patriots who love their country, love God and love their country. And of course, I have, some folks that are very opinionated, but they are opinionated because of passion for freedom. And I know that I've learned, I served in the military. Some of our voters did not, but we all had the same military mentality. We were ready to go to war for freedom, to stand for this nation. And it was one of the greatest blessings to be around so many patriots. And I would do it all over again. If I could have seen this crystal ball and seen how it ended up, even before I started, I would have done it all over again because of the friendships. Second time we've been here with the two of you. And now we have a friendship for life. And you can't really put a price on anything. So one of the greatest experiences of my life, really, even though we didn't finish first off the finish line like we hoped to.
But you finished first in some of our hearts. So
Thank you.
So, Mr. Nilsson, when Trump endorsed Whatley, it seemed like that was the point when you stepped aside gracefully. Was that hard for you to do?
Absolutely. I mean, when you don't do something like this lightly. Mm-hmm. I started campaigning for the United States Senate. I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago.
Okay, Mr. Brown, I think you both were at it. Okay, all right. There's no Ricky Bobby here saying if you're not first, you're last. Okay. Hey, so you both have been at it for a while, and that's what I admired over both your campaigns is that you understood to run for such an office, you got to have a lot of runway.
Sure.
You got to do a lot of grassroots. You got to talk to people, which I thought was very important. So that was not an easy decision for you. How did you just not think that it was a worthwhile effort at that point to try to pursue running against Whatley if Trump was endorsing him?
Well, it wasn't that kind of strategic. I had said the day I announced in Raleigh that I would drop out of the race if Laura Trump ran.
Okay. Now that is ancient history in this.
Yeah,
We both
and
said before.
yeah.
Okay.
I said that. I said it for, hundreds of people,
Okay.
and I maintained that line. As the race progressed, it became obvious to a lot of people, certainly including me, that Laura Trump was not going to run. And I had to kind of factor that in and decided that, well, that was the one no-go for me was Laura Trump. Otherwise, I would stay in. And but I really became conscious of the importance of supporting the president. I ran to support the president. And I'll tell you, and I'm one of many, I think, who were not always Donald Trump's fan.
Absolutely.
But I came to support him, and I knew that when he issued his endorsement, that was as good as the original promise that I made.
And the reason I bring it up is not because I want you to have to relive one of the worst damn decisions you probably had to make in your life. It was more that I want the people watching to understand who you are and who you are, Don. So, because I mean it when I say Washington could take a lesson from you guys, that we're coming together for party, despite maybe, well, we don't like everything Donald Trump has ever said or done, but we like his policies and we like, there's good things about it. So let's come together as a party and let's put our nominee into office. Sure. And that's why I bring that up. I really don't want to have to rehearse the bad news.
That's one of the things about the primaries. It's good to fight it out. And then when we have a winner, it's after they poll us behind the winner and move forward in the positive direction. Because if we win as a party, then we win as individuals, as opposed to wearing masks, keeping our children on school, and all that good stuff.
Well, who told the Democrats when they ran word salad lady?
And
I mean, somebody forgot to tell the Democrats,
thing that Watley plays and we did
Right.
when they did election for their presidential nominee, and they're getting ready to not have an election for their main what is it, senators?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
spare me. So you and Watley had some very big disagreements in the primary. So what convinced you to get behind him now?
I'll share this story tonight. Andy's heard it a bunch of times. The last time I saw my dad alive, I was looking through a nursing home outside of nursing. He's pretty much gone because of Cooper's unconstitutional mandates. Michael Watley, and for that reason alone, I'm not only 100% behind Michael Watley, I'm 1,000% behind him, and that's just getting started. And so, I'm behind Michael Watley because I love my country, love my state, love my country, love my family. And the divide, the philosophical divide between the center of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party is off the charts. They're pushing this Democrat socialist stuff now, and people are buying it. They're eating chocolate chip cookies, and so it's so crucial. This isn't like it's not your daddy's Democrat Party. It's not like there's a Sam Nunn down in Georgia, Steve Jackson in Washington, people that are not Republicans, but not crazy. They're crazy. And Roy Cooper falls into that category. He's the most radical and leftist governor this state has ever had. I do not believe he defeated, you can call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. I believe he legitimately took out Pat McCrory when he first was elected. So it's a real easy decision. Michael was, after Andy left the race, and Andy and I were sort of running the same lane philosophically. So when Andy made it, I know it was a hard decision to leave. I stayed part because of Andy, because that voice needed to be heard. I feel like that a primary is a healthy thing, and there were positions out there that need to be debated. And even though we didn't have a national debate, we got our message out, and I felt that was important.
And as long as you're agreeing on more than 70% of everything, right? I mean, there's going to be some disputes.
Yeah, we don't have to take the "are you a good enough Republican" litmus test. I mean, these guys are supporting the party, so we need to move these guys ahead. So, Mr. Nilsson, I know you've worked for campaigns going back decades. Now, have you ever seen a Senate race like this? So lopsided, so with a former governor, and it's just all the other things we've seen.
Oh goodness, I have to really think back. I mean, the first Senate campaign I ever worked on was Jesse Helms in 1984.
Okay.
Jesse Helms versus Jim Hunt, and that was a clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
And so that was a way different dynamic to this. Or it started out that way, and this is when it started. But I think that's part of why Don and I are doing what we're doing, because this Senate race, if you just look at the media and listen to the mainstream media, etc., you would think that, two-term Governor Roy Cooper and is got a lead or whatnot. This state is a lot closer than people know. It's a lot closer, certainly, than the mainstream media portrays it. This state has a reputation, election after election of closing the gap very quickly towards the end. And it will do it because North Carolina voters are good voters. They're informed voters. They'll look at the candidates, and the conservative vote in North Carolina is the quiet vote. Yeah. So what will happen as we get closer to election day is the conservative voters who don't really make themselves, very known to a lot of the media types and the polling, et cetera, they're going to start to mobilize. And what Don and I are doing is we're trying to send a signal out to them. Folks, we're ready for you to go. We know that you'll do it. This is the time to do it. This is a referendum, not just on these two candidates, Michael Whatley, Roy Cooper. We both 100% support Michael Whatley, right? But it's a referendum on Donald Trump. And so the way to show how strongly you believe in that, like we do, is to start working now. That's what this whole tour is about that Don and I are doing.
So the last Senate race that you remember that was as contested was Jim Hunt versus Jesse Helms, which was in '84, which is what, 42 years ago now.
You're good at math.
I tried to math from me. But,
I use the phrase, by the way, Peter, the great Jesse.
The great Jesse Helms. Okay, all right. AKA the great. And that's why I was trying to bring it in perspective a little bit, because I don't think even with Hunt versus Helms, you had a presidential or a whole flip of the Senate at risk.
Right.
I don't think it was that's where I'm being contested. I mean, we could very well see Donald Trump's work erased if we put a Democrat in the United States Senate.
Well, this is a key point that Don and I have been emphasizing since we started this tour. This is a national race. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here in North Carolina, we are carrying the weight of the nation on this Senate race, and it comes down to this: Roy Cooper, his best political friend, and who helped him get into law school, was his best friend through that and stayed friends with him, is a judge named Sam Ervin IV.
Okay.
And Sam Ervin IV is the son of Senator Sam Ervin, who was chairman of the House Watergate Committee that impeached, the chairman of the Senate committee that received the impeachment of Richard Nixon. Okay. And Sam Ervin from Morganton, Senator Sam, would have presided over President Nixon's removal had President Nixon not resigned. So this is really a key point, and we're trying to explain this as carefully to people as we can. Roy Cooper has been charged and tasked with leading the removal of our president by national Democrats.
It's like he has a pedigree of beating the system from inside. He can't stand to see an election fail.
USC and Carolina Law School, and was referred by Senator Sam to get in. Okay. His best friend is Senator Sam Ervin, is Judge Sam Ervin IV. He has been groomed and molded for this moment and for this role to lead the Senate prosecution and removal of Donald Trump. That's the national picture. And what will happen the day after the new Congress sits, if the Democrats take over the House, they'll impeach the president. Mm-hmm. The week after they do that, they'll refer the impeachment to the Senate. Mm-hmm. Roy Cooper, I promise you, like I know the sun's coming out tomorrow, Roy Cooper will lead the prosecution and removal of the president in the Senate. That's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. Roy Cooper should not be elected for any number of reasons, and we can go through those. But what the immediate threat, the concrete threat that we're all facing now in North Carolina and the country, is that Roy Cooper could be singularly responsible for ending Donald Trump's presidency. That's why this is such a key election.
And I think if you're a Republican or unaffiliated that leans conservative, I think it's important to realize, whether you agree that the 2020 election was rigged, stolen, whatever, all the evidence is coming out, all the things you can't look at and say nothing happened. Sure. You have to at least admit that something happened, but I feel like this is a backdoor effort by the Democrats to put in a Trojan horse like Roy Cooper, who's got a pedigree of turning up turning people around without the democratic process. So what does Whatley need to do? And this is for both of y'all. What does Michael Whatley need to do between now and November to close this gap to,
For one thing, and Anthony's touched on it a bit already, and I'll share my thoughts with Michael on it, but Roy Cooper is a target-rich environment. When he was running before for governor, I mean, yeah, he had some weaknesses. He was a disaster as North Carolina Attorney General for 12 years. We were having major counties having to send their forensic stuff off to private labs. But when he came in as governor, when you just start what he did with COVID, I mean, there's one unconstitutional mandate after the other. I mentioned, and he separated, North Carolinians from their elderly, dying parents. He signed an unconstitutional order to shut down churches, which was struck down by Republican federal judge Jim Dever, who I used to practice with years ago, Maupin, Taylor, and Ellis, which is occurring closely alive with Jesse Helms. I'm happy to say you're the no.
So you got a pedigree too.
Yeah, but Maupin Taylor was originally bought up, but is one unconstitutional mandate after the other. And then when you think about releasing 3,500 criminal thugs in the middle of COVID, and you look at the vetoes. I mean, the vetoes, and I'll probably cite some of these tonight. Our General Assembly, when we took control as Republicans in 2011, after having been elected in 2010, went to work with passing, legislation that's consistent with our core values. One was called the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. In other words, a baby born from a biased abortion, the General Assembly mandated you give them health care, you give them medical care, and Roy Cooper vetoed that. You look, for example, at the Parental Bill of Rights. Democrats believe that the government is best suited to parent kids. We say no, it's parents. And so the Bill of Rights would force schools, and still does, if you've got kids talking about transgenderism, or they can't figure out what sex they are, or they want to use pronouns, him, him, them, you got to notify the parents. It also required notification for teaching LBG stuff. Cooper vetoed that because A, it's okay for him if babies die, even if they're born. B, he doesn't think parents ultimately should be in charge of their children's upbringing. And then you look at the Fairness to Women's Sports Act that the General Assembly passed to protect girls and women from being forced to compete against superior males. All vetoed. That's part of who he is. And I think you hit him on his record over and over and over and over again. And sooner or later, you expose who he really is. Most folks don't know yet who he is because he's got a strong name recognition, but you've got a lot of voters who aren't paying as much attention as we are, don't know who he is yet. That's Michael's challenge. That's part of his challenge. And if he sticks to that formula, it's going to help him a lot. Okay.
So you said all of these things that he vetoed, and he was Attorney General for 12 years. Right. He was the governor for the full 2 terms. So the Democrats still like him. So how do we overcome that obstacle as far as outnumbering him? Because I know that so I'm just going to say it, I'm not a Michael Whatley fan, but I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Michael Whatley. I chose somebody different in the primary. So
it had to be somebody in this room. I don't know who else she could have chosen.
What do you guys need to do to get the grassroots that are more like me that aren't Whatley fans? I mean, I'm going to vote for Whatley because it's the right thing to do, and I'd rather say Senator Whatley than Senator Cooper. What do you guys need to do, or what do we need to do in order to get the grassroots to actually show up? Because that was my concern. I said that at the beginning. If Don Brown means the establishment will show up for Don Brown, the grassroots may not show up for Whatley because of just who he is or has.
Take a shot at that. We both, Don addressed it. He said that we ran on the same line, and we did. We ran in the Jesse Helms conservative wing of the Republican Party, and updated is the grassroots MAGA conservative wing of the Republican Party. Make America Great Again, America First. We ran in that same lane because you have to remember when we started out running, we weren't running against Michael Whatley. We were running against Tom Tillis. And Tom Tillis looked maybe a nice guy. I have no idea, never met him personally, but I will say that as a senator, he was a sorry excuse for a senator. I don't mind saying that. He just was. He was all over the place on the issues. He voted with the Democrats consistently. And so there were a lot of conservatives who had had enough of it. I certainly did. That's why I filed to run for the Senate. Don did the same thing. So we were running against him at that time to give primary voters a real conservative choice. So what does Whatley need to do? Well, I think that Michael Whatley's doing all that he can, quite honestly. I think he's doing all that he can to put forward a conservative vision that's in line with the president. This is my concern, and I'll be perfectly candid. If there are those around him who are urging him to move towards the middle, to kind of soften some of those issues, distance himself from Trump, perhaps, or be a little bit soft on America First, or a little bit soft on immigration, illegal immigration, or a little bit soft on other things because they think that elections are one in the middle. I've got news for you. I was with Jesse Helms in 1984 and every campaign after that. And Republicans win in North Carolina when we stay true to conviction and not convenience. When we paint in bright colors and not pale pastels. What needs to happen? And I would truly, with all sincerity, offer this to my friend Michael Whatley. Stick to conservative values. Stick to the direction laid down by the president. Stick to the history of North Carolina conservative family values. So, look, North Carolina needs its business. The state has changed a lot, more people moving in, et cetera, et cetera. But fundamentally, we are a church-going, family-dedicated, patriotic people in this state. And we always prove that on Election Day. You've just got to remind us. You've got to get us back to the basics on that point, and we'll come out and vote. And Don and I are reaching out now. We're sending our messages now to that same base. That's what we call fire up the base. And we're saying, hey, conservative people, you need to come out and you need to vote on Whatley and vote on the rest of the ticket. Because it's the only way for us to stand up for God and family and country. Period. Full stop. That's what this is all about. And I hope that all the campaigns hear that message and resist this temptation to think that somehow we win in the middle. We don't win in the middle. The only ones that win it, the only ones that occupy the middle of the road is roadkill. And we're not going to be roadkill.
Right. Well, I think you summed it up. And I think for those of us like myself with short attention spans sometimes, conviction over convenience. Right then and there. Because when these candidates waver and start to kowtow to the middle, and you're suggesting, look, stick to your guns.
Jesse Helms, Jesse Helms used to joke around. He said, I never won a poll, but I never lost an election. How's that? Pretty good. And he's right. We are right at the center state. And if you start thinking about it, you could ask a very good question. I'll try to just address that in a second. But right now, Republicans have eclipsed Democrats in voter registration. Unaffiliated eclipsed that. But we have a numerical advantage, the issue we get our people out. Now, let me address some of the comments I've heard some of our supporters say. I've heard one say, well, I don't like Whatley, so I won't vote or vote Libertarian, and we'll get somebody else in next time. Listen, here's the problem. You can't take that chance. Anybody with that sort of mentality is failing to understand the tremendous damage that a Democrat Roy Cooper could do in the Senate. And if you take that position, we run the risk of losing the U.S. Senate. It's not a given we're going to gain Georgia. As Andy has said, this is the playout of the country. Texas is going to be competitive. We lose the Senate, it's Katie bar the door. But it used to be, I remember when I was at the Pentagon and Bill Clinton came in and they tried to do don't ask, don't tell, and they were doing all that stuff. You know who blocked it? I'll tell you who blocked it. It was the Democrat Senate chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Sam Nunn from Georgia. You see, we can't sit it out because there's going to be a moderate Democrat. If you turn the country over to them, the amount of damage that they will do in 4 to 6 years be irreparable. It took Trump long enough to dig out when Biden's up, but the Congress, there's only one Democrat in the Senate that even talks halfway sensible sometimes. That's better. And the rest of them are a bunch of left-wing idiots. Too much damage to be done. The country is at stake. So I urge the folks who support me, if you sit this one out, or if you vote Libertarian, you're voting for the Democrat, and we can't recover from the damage that they will do, even if we're able to take the seat in 60 years from now. So there's too much at stake to run the risk. It's like playing Russian roulette, and we just can't afford to do that. We've got to stick with the Republican ticket from the top to bottom. That means U.S. Senate. That means our judicial races, which are crucial. I've been talking about those. That means holding the line, the General Assembly, and expanding the North Carolina House. We're veto proof once again. Too much is at stake. We can't turn back. We got to go on the offensive.
I would say you might want to do well to like campaign with you and reach out to the county, because I don't understand like.
Are we going to see more of him between now and the election?
Because I might change my opinion if I actually have a conversation
well,
with them.
They reached out to us a couple of times, and hopefully some things will be coming. But I think you're going to see, it'll get stepped up after Labor Day. We're seeing a lot of Democrats. Who's got a lot more money? These Democrats. The amount of money they control is off the whole.
What is it? Act Blue scandal?
All that. Yeah.
All these small donors going through the big system.
It is a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme, if you ask me. Yeah. And some, I would suggest people would investigate. Anyway.
So you mentioned fire up the base. So you're doing some kind of tour or something? Tell us about the tour. Or tonight, I know you're going to be here.
Well, tonight's number 5, I think. 5 of 9 appearances.
Okay.
First one started in Wilmington, New Bern, Jacksonville. We're in Holly Springs, up in Wayne County, which is available tonight.
Where are you going to be? Where are you going to be tonight at 6 p.m.?
We're going to be at Samuel's restaurant
in Hope Mills.
In Hope Mills, Samuel's restaurant in Hope Mills.
Well, that's right. We sure hope to the restaurant.
Shout out to Samuel's. Hey, great food, great quality.
Can't wait if I have to add. I mean, they're up to people. Yeah, that's because it's good Italian. That's right.
Be there tonight. Went to Salem on Monday.
Where are you feeling in Salem?
At the Conservative Luncheon at the Golden Corral on Stratford Road in Winston-Salem, 12 o'clock. Tuesday at 6 p.m. in Hickory at the Golden Corral on Hickory. That's being sponsored by Catawba Valley Tea Party and some other groups that are in Catawba County. Then Wednesday at lunchtime at what's the name of the country club up in Elkin? I can't remember.
North. Is it North?
It's
the North.
He's a country club in Elkin. I can't remember the name.
Cedar, yeah.
Cedar Brook.
Yeah,
Cedar Brook.
Cedar Brook.
Cedar Brook Country Club Wednesday, and then finally Thursday we wind it up at Sea Breeze Seafood Restaurant in Hendersonville, North Carolina, 6 p.m. up in the mountains on Thursday night, and that's where that we wind it up there. Although we got a request in from Mecklenburg County to run another one in August, another Fire Up the Base event in August down in Charlotte, and we'll do that too.
That's why, guys, that it makes me, and I get emotional when I talk about politics. But anyway, it makes me proud to be a Republican, that you guys would go along, and even though you didn't see eye to eye, that you would go and do all of this for somebody that you didn't see eye to eye with. It makes me proud that we can come together as Republicans. And even though we don't agree 100% of the time, we still stand behind the person that they blame.
Well, Anthony's been doing a fabulous job out on this, and we swap around. Like I'll go first tonight, and you'll back clean up. We reversed it this morning, but the point is the show of solidarity. Because we have been in this from the very beginning for something that is larger than us, something that is more important, the future of the nation, of our state, and defending freedom. I mean, freedom is really what's on the line. I've often made the point on the campaign trail that the power of the government and the freedom of the individual are inversely proportional to one another. And the power of the government comes through regulation over taxation. My view on taxation is the only good tax is a repeal tax. I know we can't always do that, but they take our freedom, and they're seeking to do that. I just saw today the so-called Democrat Socialist Party has a platform, and part of that platform is to abolish the United States Senate altogether, to have a unicameral House, to have absolute open borders. It's absolute communism with a goal toward destroying the country. But people out there are Democrat socialists, they think they're voting for the Democrats. Well, the Democrat Party's about gone to hell in a handbasket in terms of
socialist views. They just haven't been openly expressed.
Right.
Recently.
Yeah. Right. No.
And look, as a maturing Gen Xer over here, right? I'm still maturing. I'm not done. I always grew up with the feeling that, look, my government has checks and balances, and if they have the crazy, then eventually the young crazies will balance them out. But I'm seeing more and more, and I've spoken to friends about it. I feel like everybody says every election is the most important, but this really is one of the most important things, because look at the stuff we have allowed from the left to encroach on us.
You've got checks and balances built into the Constitution, the greatest document ever written other than the Holy Bible itself, and inspired by God. But look what we have now on the Supreme Court. Ketanji Jackson Brown, you have AOC, and the who is mentioned as the president as a contender.
And AOC is trying to say, no, we need to have a way to not abolish the Supreme Court, but add seats.
Of course,
to basically make it
unfair. Be a moving target to help them.
They want to mess with our fundamental, foundational, what a document that lasted 250 years to survive. They want to screw up.
The reason John Adams said it can only work with religious people, and he was talking about our Judeo-Christian heritage. He says, you got to have common sense. Mm-hmm. If you have communists that are being elected, it's the mayor of the largest city, you put them into the Congress, and even try to get them in as president, that is a threat to our republic, and it's a threat to our freedom. So Andy and I are doing this because we love something that is more important than both of us, and we'll continue to battle that. The Senate race, you don't always win a battle, but it's about winning the war. And we're going to continue to fight and stand together through this.
Well, gentlemen, Andy,
Peter, can I just?
Yes.
I'm going to direct this to the Republican voters out there. Okay. Hey, there's nobody in the state that's more conservative than Don Brown or myself. And we've got skin in the game. Don and I both ran for the Senate. We didn't make it through to the end, but we've got skin in the game. There's nobody more conservative than us. You need to vote. You need to vote on Michael Whatley and the rest of the Republican ticket. That's the answer. There is no other answer. You don't vote for anyone else, and you don't stay home. Neither of those is an option. You had your option during the primary. That's over with. Now, the only choice of action now is to vote in the general election for the entire ticket and make sure you bring everybody you know to do it. Because at the end of the day, this is about your country. It is about your family. It is about your faith.
Amen to that. Yes, this very well is the most important election of our lives, especially when it comes to what we're dealing with the encroachment of the radical progressive left. So, gentlemen, I do appreciate you being here this afternoon. It was a lot of fun as always.
Yeah,
you feel like sketch? Okay, I'm going to go out there and have a plate. Let's go have dinner. All right. Well, to everybody watching, thank you for joining the special edition of the Cabinet, and we hope we'll see you again on Monday at 6 p.m. Speak to you then.
Thank you.